Well, good morning. Welcome to our Technology Takes the Wheel Speaker Seminar. We are very, very honored to have all of you with us today. And we're going to get started on time because we have a great lineup of speakers for you, and we want to make sure that you get maximum value from this particular event. My name is Debbie Franklin, and I work at Wichita State University and lead strategic initiatives. Um, we are honored to be partnering on this speaker series with our good friends from AAA, and we will have their collaboration for this four-part speaker series. I'm going to start us off today with some of those basic housekeeping things, which I know you're all just really dying to hear. So thank you for hanging in here as we go through this. As I'm sure you all have done, you've put your cell phones on quiet. And many of you have already begun to investigate how do you get to Wi-Fi. Well, there is a guest Wi-Fi. No username is required. No password is required. Just go ahead and select that, and that'll get you on the Wi-Fi system. NCAT, National Center for Aviation Training, is a no-smoking campus. There are in this room 2 exits. We've got 3 doors down here, which of course you saw because you came in that way. But those of you who are new to this facility may not know that there is a sneaky door to get in and out in the back corner up here. And there's a stairwell that comes down off of that. So I did want to mention that because when you look at the agenda, you will notice that this runs from 9 to 11:30 and you don't see the scheduled break, right? There is no formal scheduled break. So we know that you're adults, you'll take care of your own hospitality, go in and out. There will be natural transitions between the various speakers, and do feel free. That's why I wanted to point out that discreet door in the back is sometimes one of the easier ways to get in and out if you're transitioning at a time other than when we're moving through speakers. Let's see, other things I wanted to mention, 2 sets of restrooms. We have 1 set of restrooms if you go out the door and you continue through the lobby area, there's a set of restrooms there. But if you turn to the right and the right again, there's another set of restrooms. The set back over this way are less frequented, okay? All right. And the restrooms do serve as a tornado shelter. We shouldn't need to worry about that today, but just wanted to let you know. Last 2 things I'll mention that is always one of the first questions that asked is, are the PowerPoints going to be available? Yes, give us some time. Midweek next week, you're going to find it on the website where you see the registrations. So you'll be able to pick up the PowerPoints and register for the next event. And we also are recording today's presentation. It should be posted by midweek and the next week if you wanted to share that with your peers. Okay. Moving on, I also want to recognize our planning committee. Sean has been a great partner with us, and he is continuing to take care of some of the there's Sean up here, and we are grateful for his help and leadership on coordination with our speakers as well as many other details. On the Wichita State side, we have the College of Engineering, Jan, Gary, Ray, Strategic Initiatives, Sherry, Deb, and oh goodness, Jen, of course. And then our good friends at NIAR, Tracy and Katie, have been an enormous help. So you want to thank them when you see them for all their great work and help with that as well. Last thing I want to do before we transition to more exciting stuff than this is I wanted to point out that this particular topic today we're going to do is more of an overview of autonomous vehicles, talking about the transformation of transportation and the disruptive nature of autonomous vehicles. So today serves as an overview, but the next 3 sessions are going to dig deeper under a number of different topics. So if you flip your card to the back, you'll find a little bio on each of our speakers, but we also have the highlights of the next topics. So upcoming on October 11th, not too far away, is Human Mobility Impacts of Autonomous Vehicles. Then in 2020, at the end of January, we hope you join us for Infrastructure, Security and Vehicle Consideration and Autonomous Transportation. And our final one is scheduled for April 17th, Autonomous Vehicle Transportation in Rural and Urban Settings, and the unique challenges and how this is likely, at least at this point in time, our vision of how this is likely to unfold, or subject matter experts' vision of how this is likely to unfold. So the registration for the October event is open. And after the October event, we will open up registration for the 2020, the spring cohort of the seminars. So we hope you join us. We hope that you invite others. We do have some empty seats. We need to fill this place up. So thank you for your help in outreach on that. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you our friend Kathy Rossi from AAA. And Kathy joins us from Wilmington, Delaware, where she is Vice President of Public Relations and Government Affairs for AAA, Club Alliance, the parent organization of AAA Kansas and the AA markets in 12 other states and Washington, D.C. Again, we're honored to have you join us, and we're especially honored to have Kathy with us today. Please join me in welcoming Kathy.
Thank you. Thank you, Deb, and thank you, Wichita State. We're thrilled. AAA is thrilled to partner on this seminar series. You know, we've come a long way since the horse and buggy more than 100 years ago, and that's the genesis of AAA. We were there as the motorist's best friend when drivers became stranded and we stepped up as good Samaritans on the side of the road and made a pretty good business of it over the time, and we're still there for our members when they break down. Over the past 100 years, we've seen tremendous changes in the automobile. Safety enhancements have accelerated, as have the speed of cars. AAA is actively engaging in helping our members, drivers, and really all consumers of innovation understand what is happening with the future of our vehicles. People love their cars. People have relationships with their cars. Cars represent freedom. They are empowering. And some of our AAA surveys, and Jill from AAA is going to talk about this a little bit more later in the program, have told us that the majority of drivers are afraid of self-driving cars. We have a lot of work to do in the consumer education space. And these public dialogues and conversations about the changing nature of our vehicles and where we're going with them are helpful to everyone. Because this forum helps us to engage and to influence and to have conversations that will also influence the future of these vehicles. Because we know from our engagement on autonomous vehicle task forces across states, across the country, these conversations are active and ongoing, and departments of transportation as well as OEMs, the manufacturers of cars, as well as software engineers and all those entrepreneurs, both in Silicon Valley and in Detroit and elsewhere, are listening to what advice is being given from various organizations and coalitions, and really how this is going to land and where it's going to land over time as the transformation of transportation takes place. And so we have really crossed a new threshold on the frontier of transportation as technology takes the wheel. Welcome to the first seminar here at Wichita State. It's time to turn the program over to your moderator for today to begin the seminar. So I would like to introduce her. Felicia Rolfe is a news anchor and reporter for KWCH TV 12 Eyewitness News, which is the CBS affiliate here in Wichita. Felicia recently returned to Wichita and to KWCH after a move to Texas. She grew up in Wichita and attended Wichita State. So please join me in welcoming our moderator for today, Felicia Rolfe.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome this morning. I hope you're excited as I am to learn all about this new technology. It's so awesome. I didn't think I would see the day that cars would drive themselves. Did you guys? I mean, it's so cool. So we're going to get started so we can get all this information out and see what is happening here. We're going to go with our first speaker. Our first speaker is Director of Innovative Technologies for the State of Kansas Department of Transportation, or KDOT as we know it. Mike Floberg has held the position since October 2017 when it was created to help Kansas prepare for the future of transportation, what we're talking about today. Mike holds a BS in civil engineering from Kansas State University, and in his 31 years with KDOT, he has served the agency with roles in bridge design, inspection for bridges, intelligent transportation systems, as Metro Engineer Bureau Chief, and now Director of Innovative Technologies. Let's please welcome Mike Floberg.
Thank you, Felicia. Good morning, everybody. Yeah. Are you all ready for this evolution? This is a big change, and it's easy to sit in this audience and say, yeah, everything's going well. This is going to be good. Well, I might burst your bubble a little bit. It's not going to be as smooth as we think. But the one thing I want to warn everybody is don't buy into the hype. You got a little time. You got a little time to look at things. We have a lot of time to start to figure out where we go. Okay? That is a big struggle when we are not driving the ship. The ship today is being driven by the OEMs, which is the original equipment manufacturers, Chevy, Ford, Mercedes, all of them. Okay? Where are we going? What are we doing to prepare? As you can see by the pictures, these are kind of things that are in the motion already today. Most of you in the Wichita area know what the which way system is. And most of you in Kansas probably have heard of the Kansas City Scout system. Those were the early systems that are going to kind of help us get going and start feeding a lot of the information we have. You'll hear about the one in the upper right hand today. Navya was here. They'll talk about the autonomous shuttle. And then the one in the top center is the connected and autonomous vehicle slide. And then the one in the center, I feel, is what we can do today to get started. Okay, all the fiber optics and communications in the ground. Very important for where we head. Just to get everybody on the same page, I want to kind of tell you how we're going to define the things you're probably going to hear later from Jim and Jill and Aaron as we go forward. Autonomous and connected, two totally different systems. Okay, where I think we need to go today is we need to get connected going first. Connected is the sensors in the car that will talk to other cars, they'll talk to people, they'll talk to signs, they'll talk to the roadway, they'll talk to dynamic message boards, they'll talk to the traffic management centers, and possibly even talk to law enforcement as they're going down the highway. That is a connected vehicle. That's a whole lot of sensors talking to a whole lot of different things. And you start picturing your worst intersection in the city of Wichita, and all these cars talking to each other so you avoid the collisions. The most important piece that's going to come out of this is safety. That's what's driving everybody to move towards autonomous and connected, is safety. 94% today are caused by human error. Okay, we take the human out of the picture, hopefully we can eliminate a large portion of those. Autonomous is a system of computers. Driving that car can allow the human intervention, or in the future, it could take the human intervention away. Think about the future of no steering wheel in a car. Spooky, isn't it? I don't know if I'm glad I'm getting older. I used to think I wanted to be younger, but I'm glad I'm getting older now. And so it is spooky, but I think before we get there, it'll be well tested and well proven that it will work. Okay, they will not take that steering wheel out for quite a while. What you'll hear today is levels of automation. Where are we? SAE has a level of automation that goes from 0 to 5. Today, we're probably sitting right about in the 2 to 3 range. The Tesla is kind of closer to the 3. It's really on what actions the driver is responsible for in the vehicle that determines this transformation. Full automation, the driver may have the option to control, but I doubt if they will, because they're going to actually it says performing all driving functions under all conditions. And number 4, under certain conditions. And so the driver is definitely involved in 4 and probably most likely not involved in 5. There's some planning going on right now and private testing going on at the 4 level. Arizona is a big leader. They're actually trying to get, Waymo's trying to get automated shuttles and that kind of going down there. So it is in motion, but there's a lot of work to be done. What are we doing in the state of Kansas? Currently, I have a task force that I put together, and we've completed about 6 or 7 months of work already. We have started with a vision plan. The vision plan is written. It's a final draft. It's not final. It's not approved. It's going through reviews right now. And I'm going to walk through the process, how we got to where we are today. What did we do to come up with even a vision of where the state is headed? The process, we selected Howard Needles, HNTB, to be our consultant on the project. They did a really good job meeting what I expected. I wanted a plan that was less than 50 pages. They gave me a plan that was about 10 pages, but then they broke it out into blueprints for each different agencies. We handed out, I believe it was 11 agency blueprints so that other people can kind of follow what we're trying to do. Get them started, really to just get kick-started, start the discussion. Because if we don't start today, we're gonna be hit and we're gonna be buried to try to get to where we need to be. In that vision plan, we did a stakeholder survey of just the task force group. We did 4 in-person meetings and 1 Skype meeting, and that Skype meeting was really for the final. We also held one-on-one stakeholder interviews with a number of the agencies to help develop the blueprint and then the final plan. The survey, as you can see, really was to try to find out where we stood. Where did all the agencies stand? Where did private industry stand today with automated and connected vehicles? As you can see, I was really impressed that most of them were informed. 80% were informed of some fashion of automated and connected vehicles. That really kind of shocked me because I didn't think they were there. 75% said they're going to be impacted in 1 to 5 years. That's probably true. I think that's a good decision on their part to actually start thinking about it. But at the same time, 75% said they'd be affected, but the number that's shocking is 25% include planning or even budgeting to talk about it. That has to start happening today. There's just too many things moving. We can't settle things down until we start talking about it and see where we're going, but we have to start talking, and that's the whole purpose. And I appreciate this whole setting because, you know, the first members in the nation with automation was the airlines. They're automated. Okay, why don't we follow suit somehow? Most agencies were addressing some kind of technology, including data. They all know data is a big piece of this whole package. Their concerns are the typical laws, legislation, cybersecurity, liability and coordination. Do we have answers for all those? No. Next week I'm going to Chicago to talk about insurance, and so that'll be an interesting week in Chicago, I think. Needs, infrastructure mobility options. There's a lot of them out there. They already started. Uber, Waymo, Lyft, your scooters, your bikes, all of that's already kind of out there. How do we allow local levels of agencies to take a lead in this effort? You know, they don't really want to be mandated on what they have to do, but what they need to do is start looking at their signal systems. If they have signals, start looking at trying to get the technology into the signals so that they're prepared to start talking to cars. V2V, which is vehicle-to-vehicle communications. That's pretty much in the works today, but now we have a complication because now you got Toyota that was going to do 2021, I believe it was, put dedicated short-range communication in all their vehicles. And that was a big, big thing. I was happy to hear that. And then Ford came out and said, we're going to put 5G in all our vehicles. Uh-oh. Now, which one are we going to use? So Toyota said, well, we're going to put it on hold. We're not going to put anything in the vehicles until it's settled down on what communication is going to be used. Now, that just set us back. Okay, we need to start moving forward instead of setting us back. And so we need to get settled down on how we're going to communicate between the vehicles and everybody else. But once we get there, I think it'll go pretty smooth. Impacts, of course, safety is still a concern. You know, some of these cars have GIS systems in them to kind of guide them. You know, we had Missouri is doing a study today, and one of their GIS systems was wrong, so the truck that they had it on was just going haywire underneath all the bridges. It wouldn't stay a straight line. So, of course, they immediately pulled it out of service and working on it. Broadband, maintenance of broadband, maintenance of our right-of-ways, all of that comes into play. You know, the scary part to me is this transition today between computers and human drivers. You know, all the things we're going to put in the roadways or the roadways and the roadsides for the computers now become what I call road art for the humans to hit when they leave the roadway. So we have to be very careful on what we put alongside our roads. The survey for the private industry, as you can see, they're a lot more advanced than we are. They are looking in things. They are moving forward. They understand that we have to allow companies to innovate, which we do. We have to provide public education, which is what we're doing regularly anymore, and then we have to embrace technology. And that's probably the scarier part for a lot of the public, is embracing this technology. Benefits, there's still a fear of having a shortage of staff in the freight industry, but I know, listening to commercial fleets, they will not get rid of the driver for quite some time, and then they also believe that the benefit will be the safer outcomes. Presenters in this whole process, we had five presenters. Five presenters present to us from Ford. Tony Reinhardt came in and talked to us about what Ford is doing today to move towards a level 4 vehicle. Their direction, what they're planning on moving forward. They're really looking at mobility as a service into the future, so that will be interesting. Kirk Steidel, who was the former director of Michigan DOT, talked to us about how to deal with legislation issues. You know, Michigan's one of the leaders, and how do we deal with all the issues that come with legislation? The other thing, Michelle McGlure talked about Cisco and how they're preparing for it as we move forward. And that's a lot of it's communications with them and just different types of systems. And then the interesting one, Sarah Lawson from the Hyperloop really came in, talked to us about what Missouri is doing with their feasibility study. Hyperloop 1 is really focusing on Missouri heavy. Okay, Missouri wants to look into trying to get a Hyperloop from St. Louis to Kansas City, and basically they'll travel 30 minutes to go that 4-hour normal trip. And so they're in the process of trying to come up with funding. They did complete the feasibility study, and it's anywhere from $25 to $40 million a mile. So the right-of-way is another concern. Do you put it on the interstate right-of-way or you go on your own? Those little things have to be worked out. And then Brian McClendon, who was one of the creators in Google, or one of the former employees for Google Earth, he came in and talked to us about really how these vehicles operate, how they talk to each other, how they sense what's happening in the system, how they communicate. And it was really kind of interesting to hear him. He has a vision that he believes that, you know, in the near future, we won't be looking at communications in the ground. We'll be looking at communications in the satellites. And I think that's true, but I think we have to prepare for what's out there today, which is the fiber in the ground. The blueprints that we created, and this is an example of KDOT's blueprint. You can kind of see all the different topics being covered there. My printout's actually kind of small, so I might just turn. The Kansas vision statement and mission statement, which is our own statements that we have. The different things, the CAV, connected and automated vehicle challenges. We also talk about the opportunities, system needs, strategies, and this is the same model that's used for all the 11 agencies, okay? And it fits to their desires, their strategies, their goals. The second page of it gets into the cost and the funding, the partnership opportunities, which are huge. We definitely will be living off of a lot of partnerships as we go into the future. Education of audiences, who do we talk to? How do we educate? Immediate key actions that we really probably ought to start doing. I think it's all to prepare. If you look at them, it does not say implement. It says prepare, identify, collaborate, develop. And so it's all preparation. The time frame we need to do, which we know, I'm already starting to do it from 0 to 3. So, and then also future performance measures that we may need to do, and then of course the contact information. Phase 2 of the vision plan is in the works for the future. We're at the scoping process right now. We haven't wrapped that up, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll get that done. Legislation is a major issue. We don't know how we're going to get this into legislation yet. A couple years ago, 2 years ago actually, we presented to the Senate Transportation Committee and the House Transportation Committee, and in one of the statements in the Senate was, what would it take to get a bill? Okay, the bill that I'm hoping that we work toward, if we do, will be a testing bill. We'll allow the companies to come in, tell us when they come in, and then actually put some requirements on them that if they have an incident, they have to notify us. Their vehicle has to meet all the safety regulations that are in our state today. Basically, we try to eliminate the liability the best way we can with our language, and so we're working on that. Fiber optic network, we're currently upgrading that. We have an ONS system today. We're going to go to a DWDM, which is a dual wave division multiplexing, or dense wave, however you want to look at it, dual wave or dense wave. And basically what that's going to do is allow us to hand out phantoms of light. It'll reduce the need of fiber for us, so that'll help us a lot. Pilot deployments, got 2 pilot deployments coming in the future, and then also a pool fund study we're working on. The pilot deployments are internets of things. Basically, we're just going to put dedicated short-range communication on our roadside and in a couple KDOT trucks and let them start talking to each other and start seeing what we can get out of it. What do we need to expect when that happens? The wind warning, as you heard probably a couple weeks ago, we had 20 semis blown over in western Kansas. We hope to be able to take that information, start out with our KDOT trucks, and then move it to where we can hand systems off to our commercial fleets. And so hopefully we can help with that situation. The autonomous maintenance technology pilot study, there's 10 states, almost all those states except for 3 of them have a truck coming or a truck handy. So we're doing a lot of research with those. Currently, deployment guidelines is one of them, and then the human automated maintenance vehicle interaction is another. How does a human react? Do I still have time? Okay, I got one last thing that's going to kind of show what I'm talking about with this pool fund study, and I think you're going to enjoy this. If I can do it. And I'm going to walk you through this. And what you see here, remember, we're manually holding the signal on this case, okay, because we provided enough gap between the trucks. Where this is in the state of Colorado. Colorado has a program called RoadX. And what you'll see is a paint striping truck come around that corner and start moving down the road here shortly. There it is, just coming in your picture on the left. Okay, that's the type of striping trucks that we use typically within the DOTs. In that truck is a person driving, of course, but the second truck that you've probably seen starting around the corner, those are our follower trucks, and we call them impact attenuator trucks. And really, it is what it says it is. It's meant to get hit. If there's a traffic coming and there's somebody to get hit, we want the impact attenuator truck to get hit. It has a crash cushion on the back, but if it's meant to get hit, why would we put a person in it? Well, this is proof we don't have to put a person. Look in the window when it comes by in that side window. You will not see a human being sitting in that truck. Okay? Now, remember, I said we had 10 states in the pool fund study. 7 of them are currently working for trucks with that. And they're doing a lot of research. Missouri's, like I said, had a little haywire with the GIS, but they're in the process of working that out. Colorado's had some bumps in the road, but really it's worked out pretty well. And so that's the future. Why put a human in a truck that, in theory, is meant to get hit? Okay, so that's how we're going to try to improve safety in our work zone. Hopefully what this one does is just follow breadcrumbs, and hopefully the technology is a lot more advanced in the future. With that, thank you.
All right, we're just getting started. I don't know about you guys, but I am sold. You know, Mike talked about safety, and I figure it can't be any more unsafe than teenage drivers. I have 2 teenagers, one already driving and one who will be driving in a couple of years. So I have seen it firsthand that teenage drivers are dangerous on the road. All right, so we're going to move on to our next presenter. Our next presenter is Jim Barbaresso, Senior Vice President and Practice Leader in Intelligent Transportation Systems and Emerging Mobility Solutions for HNTB Corporation in Detroit. Jim has more than 40 years' experience in transportation planning, transportation operations, and ITS in both the public and private sectors. He leads the HNTB ITS practice and provides subject matter expertise on highway, transit, aviation, and tolling projects across the United States, including some of the nation's most challenging emerging mobility programs. Jim has authored numerous white papers and articles on public agency considerations regarding new mobility, solutions in our age of connectivity and automation, and has given a TED Talk on some of the impacts of connected automation. Let's welcome now Jim Barbaresso.
Thank you, Tracy. Good morning. It's great to be here in Kansas. I came here from Detroit last night and almost got stuck in Atlanta. But air travel isn't like road travel. Now, we are actually on the cusp of a transformation in transportation that's being driven by a number of forces. Vehicle automation is just one of them, but connectivity, as Mike said, electrification, and also sharing. So those forces are having a dramatic impact on transportation today, and will have even a more dramatic impact on transportation in the future. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about some of the business cases for these types of solutions, and then also talk a little bit about the future, the far off future, and some of the things that we need to be careful about and prepare for. So with that, I'll get into some of the business cases. And if you look at this list, it's a pretty long list, but all of these things are currently underway. Here in Kansas, to some degree, with Mike, but also all across the country. Ride-hailing services in Phoenix, San Francisco, Waymo, and GM are already testing their technologies with GM Cruise and Waymo vehicles in those two locations. And that's just going to increase as they get better confidence in those technologies. First and last mile type opportunities, and this is really all about connectivity between modes. High capacity transit corridors that connect with, say, an automated shuttle solution to deliver you to that last mile to your destination. Residential campus type circulation solutions. And this is happening all over the country using automated shuttle solutions. And you'll hear a little bit more about that from Aaron today. And then automated transit. Transit's been kind of slow on the pickup here, but they're coming on board now. And there are a number of exciting projects, and I'll talk about one or two of them, that are coming down the pike. Truck automation and platooning, and you heard Mike say a little bit about that too. There's been testing out there on many of our interstate highways already, and you'll see, and maybe you won't see, you might see a truck going by with a driver in it, but that driver may be like reading a newspaper or something, and you think, wow, that could be an automated truck, or not. Package and food delivery, you're hearing more and more about that. Domino's and Ford entered a partnership, for example. And then Mike also mentioned highway maintenance operations. So I'm going to just briefly touch on each one of these business cases and talk about the impact that these are going to have on our transportation infrastructure and, in some cases, our users. So when it comes to ride-hailing is happening now with transportation network companies, Uber and Lyft and others around the world. And soon, because it makes good business sense for profitability of these companies, to get the driver out of that vehicle and automate this function. And so you're seeing that in places like San Francisco and Phoenix with Waymo and GM. Even the auto companies are thinking about this as a business model for the future, where they'll be the fleet owners of these ride-hailing services. But from an infrastructure perspective, we've got to think about this, because now we have all of these curb management requirements. Where do you put all of these automated, networked vehicles that are running around? Or do you not run them around? You put them in queues somewhere, or repurposed parking structures and facilities. And what do you put in those parking facilities to keep them fueled up and charged? For example, most of them will be electric vehicles. So those are the types of considerations. And when you start thinking about, all right, parking structures now, we should begin thinking about them in terms of repurposing them for the future. Put the ramps on the exterior of the parking structures. Build flat floors in the structures. Add the ducts and the shafts that are going to be needed to transform that facility into a business or for some other purpose in the future. And when it comes to parking lots, you're already seeing this at airports and such, where you have Uber zones now where people go to those places to get matched up with their TNC driver. Well, that's going to become more and more important in the future in an automated world. First and last mile services, again, this is where things come together, that where you have seamless intermodal connectivity between services. High capacity transit like light rail, or I'll talk about it in a second, bus platoons at mobility hubs, where these transit stations now become really multimodal centers where you have all kinds of different options available to you, but also common payment platforms to allow that seamless transfer. In Detroit, one of the major companies in Detroit, Rock Financial, actually has exterior parking lots, and they run their employees from those exterior parking lots outside downtown to the main campus in the center of downtown using automated shuttles. Circulators are another big thing right now. In this case, we've got a number of cities that are looking to replace their automated people mover systems with an automated shuttle solution. And why? Because it costs $2 billion or billions of dollars to replace the infrastructure and the vehicles for automated people movers. So airports are also looking at this. And when you look at an automated shuttle solution, those vehicles run what, Aaron, about $400,000 each, maybe? So to replace one vehicle like that versus many billions of dollars, you could put a whole fleet of automated shuttles out there and platoon them, get the same carrying capacity for far less cost. And so a number of cities, Jacksonville being one of the main ones that's doing this, and I'll show you an animation in a little bit, a visualization of how that might work in Jacksonville, Florida. Transit automation, a number of projects going on right now, but the one that's furthest ahead, and they've already hired a contractor to retrofit their buses for automation, is the New Jersey Transit in cooperation with the Port Authority in New York, New Jersey, to automate buses through the Lincoln Tunnel between northern New Jersey and New York City. Thousands of buses a day take that route. And of course, one of the big challenges there is how do you provide localization and accurate automation through a tunnel where you have no GPS signal? Well, you have to do it through localization technologies like ultra-wideband and other types of things that give you centimeter level accuracy so the vehicles don't run into each other or into the walls of the tunnel. So very exciting stuff happening there. And that also, some of these technologies will allow, through cooperative adaptive cruise control, these buses to actually platoon. So shorten up the headways and provide even more carrying capacity through that tunnel, which is extremely important in a populated area like New York City. Automated goods movement. There's automation throughout the entire distribution network, from manufacturing to the ports to the distribution centers, and all of it connected over the highway system. And that's why truck automation is so important. There's a truck driver shortage. So there are automated trucks out there on many highways. In Florida, they're running around all over the place. So if you travel to Florida, be careful, you know, because they, but truck platooning is yet another opportunity here. And one of the impacts to infrastructure for platooning of vehicles is that those vehicles have less lane wander. So they drive in a straight line. And because of that, the pavement becomes rutted more quickly. And if they're platooned and the headways are shorter between the vehicles, that gives pavement slabs, the concrete slabs out there that you see with the joint lines in them, less time to recover between the weight of those vehicles. So less time to breathe and recover from all that. So we have to start thinking about pavement design too, and bridge weight limits also. You know, that was never considered when we started talking about platooning trucks. So those are the types of things that we also have to start thinking about. Ultimately, when AVs make up a large percentage of the fleet, maybe 25%, we can start thinking about managed lanes, automated vehicle lanes on our freeways. And as that penetration rate grows, we can incrementally add the lanes to that. And what's nice about this is that, one, you can narrow down the lanes to, say, 10 feet wide rather than the standard 12-foot wide lanes, but also you can decrease the headways and harmonize flow. So you can increase lane capacity dramatically, at least double, if not more. And by doing so, now you're increasing the capacity of the entire facility, and that really makes business sense from a public agency standpoint. Mike mentioned highway construction, maintenance, and operations, and you saw the attenuator truck, but there are also some other things that are going on out there with automated inspections using unmanned aerial vehicles, or we like to call them drones, to do inspections of bridges and places where you can't get to safely as a human inspector. So those types of things are coming. And so I like to show this slide because we're already working on new pavement designs and signage. The gentleman from 3M is here somewhere. But if cars don't crash, think about the future when cars are able to move through intersections like this, just barely missing each other. You know, you don't want to be a pedestrian at that intersection. You know, and one of the things, you know, somebody said, well, you know, I'd be terrified. You know, people are afraid to be in automated cars. Well, look at that. No wonder, you know. You know, if that's going to be the reality of it, you know, and maybe it's good. You don't need windows in automated cars, so just get rid of the windows so people can't see that. Anyway, I want to show you this animation, this visualization.
People, places, and information effortlessly. A city that uses data to make the most of our time and resources and keep us safe. Imagine a smart city that improves the lives of the people who live, work, and visit there. Together, we can make this a reality. The North Florida Smart Region Coalition partners are working together now to bring this idea of a smart city to life right here in Jacksonville. Let's explore how the Bayjacks, an innovation corridor along Bay Street, will be an important first step in creating a safer, smarter region, turning Jacksonville and North Florida into a rising center for technology jobs, e-commerce, telecommunications, and education. Today, Bay Street is our gateway through downtown Jacksonville, connecting people with residences, jobs, and entertainment destinations, including hotels, restaurants, nightclubs, Daly's Place, our sports complexes, and the shipyards. Tomorrow, the Bayjacks will be an innovation corridor that elevates the experience for residents, businesses, and visitors. Imagine having the information needed to meet your shopping, entertainment, and mobility needs in real time on your phone. You can use automated vehicles to reach destinations along the corridor and have access to more affordable mobility. Sensors know when you cross the street and notify drivers to reduce crashes. Signals are connected to vehicles to optimize traffic flow. The electricity needed to power the signals and lighting in the corridor is generated in the sidewalks using solar panels. During storms, flood warning sensors provide time to evacuate safely. And finally, lanes change colors to direct traffic for special events. As public agencies, businesses, and individuals share data to improve efficiencies, our smart city will become a catalyst for innovation, technology jobs, and new development.
So that gives you a vision of what the future might look like when vehicles are connected and automated. And this is probably a 10 to 20-year vision for Jacksonville Transportation Authority. And we built them a roadmap now so they can get to this ultimate reality within that time frame. And we're working on that currently. But I want to switch gears here just briefly and talk a little bit about a survey that we conducted, a national survey, when it came to the benefits of automated vehicles. And as Mike pointed out, a lot of this is driven by safety. But when you ask the public what the greatest benefit is, they don't perceive safety as the greatest benefit of vehicle automation. They perceive providing mobility to the transportation disadvantaged as being the greatest benefit of vehicle automation. Of course, safety ranks up there also, but it's interesting to note that this is the primary motivation for people, you know, that they see that as being the primary benefit of automated cars. And when you ask them, all right, what would you do if you're riding in an automated vehicle? 66% said, well, I'd just look out the window. This really shocked me because I thought, oh, I would do work, right? I'd be productive, or at least, you know, read a book or watch a movie or something. But for the most part, people said, I'm going to look out the windows. But let's go back to that other slide. Maybe they won't have windows, you know? So looking out the window may not be, you know, and this could change over time, certainly. But 25% said they'd sleep. I still want to know what that 3% that says something else, what that really means, you know? I've read some articles lately, and I don't even know if I want to know, actually. Anyway. So, you know, what really does lie ahead when we look at vehicle automation, you know? And is there going to be more vehicle miles traveled or fewer vehicle miles traveled? Parking. What are the impacts on parking? Less or more? Private ownership versus public or fleet-based solutions. And then the impacts on transit, you know, climate impacts, the quality of life impacts, and even urban form. So I'm going to give you my take on this, and I put on my futurist hat a little bit to come up with some answers to some of these. While I believe that vehicle automation will solve a lot of problems, I mean, a greater accessibility to opportunities, more mobility choices certainly, harmonizing traffic flow and greater safety. I think all of those things will come about. So it's going to have huge benefits for future people. But when you look at the other side of the coin, vehicle automation also may promote longer commutes as people work and sleep and even eat in their vehicles. And so if that happens, then what? Could Kansas become, say, a residential community for big cities surrounding it? Denver, Dallas, Kansas City, of course. But, could this be kind of the commuter state, for example, for these cities and metropolitan areas? So we may see more urban sprawl and impacts on our rural areas. And also the downside of that certainly is with regard to our cities and what impacts that might have on existing infrastructure. So we've got to guard against these things. And I'll take this scenario one step further. And I got to tell you, I walked in on my wife. She was watching an episode of Tiny Houses. Has anybody seen Tiny Houses? Yeah, all right. And I just went, oh my gosh, these people, they shed everything and move into these small spaces. And what if they're on wheels and they're automated? What if people said, I don't want to own a house anymore, I'll just live in my vehicle? And so that's when I thought I came up with this term, nomadization. Now, this means, people are actually living out on the road. And what does that do then to the shape of our cities and of our rural areas too, as people drive around, kind of like in a houseboat or a super RV where they live on the highways? And what does that do to our property tax revenues? Oh my gosh, this could have a tremendous impact. Now, like I said, this is kind of far-fetched, but what I want to do is use an example of the possible negative impacts of vehicle automation to say, yeah, there's some great stuff, but we've really got to be careful. And of course, this is just the beginning, because we do have now already flying cars. Frisco, Texas, and New York City and elsewhere around the country, we're seeing more and more of this now with vertical liftoff vehicles that will soon be automated, not carrying just goods, but also carrying people. And then we have our Hyperloop opportunities that are coming up. And what impacts will these new modes of travel have on our quality of life, our urban form? In fact, the New York City Metroplex is even looking at a Hyperloop network connecting all of the airports in New York City, so you can get from one airport to another in like 20 minutes. Imagine that, behind security potentially. So vehicle automation is a game changer, and it's going to change the face of transportation, but it could also change the face of our cities and our rural areas, the quality of our lives. And one thing that I've learned from exploring all this is that we cannot leave the future to chance, because we've got to begin planning, just like the state of Kansas is doing now, for these ultimate outcomes, and begin thinking about it now. So with that, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, guys, that was some good stuff. I'm getting more and more excited. And so Jim could probably add on there, I think, to the benefits of this transportation mobility after-school activity pickup. So here's my conversation yesterday. My daughter say, Mom, who's coming to pick me up from school to take me home to change, then to soccer practice, from volleyball practice? Then I would say, the automated vehicle. And then she would say, oh yeah, that's cool. Because you know, the young kids, they love technology and all this new stuff. So to them, it'd be no big deal. So I am loving this. I'm being sold by each presentation. All right, so our next speaker is Jill Ingrassia. She's Executive Director, Advocacy and Communications for AAA, based in Washington, D.C. Jill directs internal and external communications, federal and state government relations, and traffic safety advocacy, policy, and programs for AAA. She manages a staff of communications, policy, and public health professionals and oversees the development and implementation of public policy strategy of concern to AAA members and AAA business operations, including mobility and transportation safety, energy and consumer automotive issues. Throughout her 22 years with AAA, Jill has worked on initiatives to address distracted driving and impaired driving, improve teen and senior driver safety, and advocate for transportation funding and innovation. Please welcome Jill Ingrassia.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I say that partly because I'm a Nebraska native, so for me it's always nice to get back to this part of the country. And my first job out of college had me arranging speaking events around the country at universities, civic community groups, and editorial boards, and my first assignment was Kansas. So I was able to do a nice tour through universities in Pittsburgh, here at Wichita State, in Manhattan, and Lawrence, and Kansas City. So it's very nice to be back, but a lot has changed since I was last here, and it's amazing to see this wonderful facility. Kathy gave a little bit of a background about AAA and how long we've been around, and I'm happy to say that within the last month, AAA reached a new milestone of 60 million members in the United States and Canada. So it's an honor and a pleasure to do what we do for AAA members around the country. Mike and Jim have done a really good job kind of setting the stage for the future and talking about some of the basics of levels of automation and use cases for automation in the future. And I'm going to take a step back and bring us a little bit more to the future, away from Jim's nomadic zone where we might be 20, 30 years from now, to talk about some of the challenges that we have in the near term between now and when we might get to that future state, but less from a DOT perspective and more from the consumer perspective. And what does it mean for you and me who might currently be owners of vehicles and drivers of vehicles? And how do we make that transition? I would say that AAA's interest and primary focus in this is our excitement about the potential to improve safety, which is something that Jim and Mike have talked about as well. And if you look at this slide, this really conveys the urgency of improving traffic safety. We lose over 37,000 people on the nation's roads every year. That equates to about 1 death every 14 minutes. And if you think about that, by the time I finish my remarks, we could have 2 fatalities. By the end of this event, we could have about 10 fatalities. So there is an urgency. We need to figure out ways to improve traffic safety, and technology has the potential to help us on that front. Part of the problem contributing to these crashes is that we sometimes make poor decisions when we're behind the wheel. The AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety has, for almost a decade, been conducting what we call the Traffic Safety Culture Index. And it is a survey of the public's attitudes and behaviors relative to traffic safety. So you can see from this slide that we kind of operate under a do as I say, not as I do culture. Nearly all drivers in this survey, the most recent survey, said that reading an email or a text is a serious threat to their personal safety, and they perceive it to be a behavior that is very dangerous or extremely dangerous. Yet those same people 41% admit to having read a text or an email while driving in the last 30 days, and about a third indicated that they had typed a message while driving. And we see similar behaviors relative to, shown here, running a red light, perceived as dangerous, but a third said they've done so in the last month, and speeding, which is a significant factor in crashes. So we definitely need to work on changing the mindset about safety and our behavior behind the wheel. But we also need to ensure, I think in the near term, that we don't get lulled into thinking that fully self-driving and full automation is here before it really is, and that we can sort of hand off any responsibility we have as drivers. And I would argue that it's easy right now for the average person to think that in the next year or two, you might be able to park a fully self-driving vehicle in your driveway or garage. But the reality is a little more complex than that. I mean, we see headlines like you see here with bold statements about how quickly self-driving vehicles are going to be on the roads. Headlines talking about the fact that you might be able to nap or watch Netflix on your commute in the very near future. As I said, the reality is more complex, and I'm glad that we are also starting now to see headlines as well talking about some of the more realistic challenges and timelines. In fact, most recently, GM's subsidiary, automated vehicle subsidiary, Cruise Automation, announced that they would not be launching a fleet of automated ride-hailing services in 2019, and they won't commit to whether or not they'll be able to do that in 2020. Ford and other companies have said that they might have overestimated the arrival of AVs. They've got challenges with how other drivers and pedestrians and others on the road, anticipating how they're going to act. Washington Post reporter recently test drove a Tesla Model 3, and his headline on engaging with the technology was "Trust but Verify." We're also pleased to see that other leaders in the industry are talking about toning down the hype a little bit. This was one article from the Washington Post late last year talking about the need to have a little less hype and not oversell what technology can do.